Have you here, and very excited to bring on today's guest because he is another email guy. So we're going to be talking email in today's episode. But before I bring him on, what I want to do is to let you know that these episodes premiere every single week inside the Hermit Hole on a Tuesday at 9 a.m. Pacific time. Okay, so if you want to watch these episodes when they premiere before they go into onto the podcast platforms like iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify, all you have to do is join my free Facebook community called The Hermit Hole. Plus, there's a ton of other great content in there to help you grow your coaching business. So all you have to do is go to thehermithole.com and you'll be able to join that group for free and get access to these episodes when they premiere every Tuesday. Okay, so with that being said, let me bring on today's guest. So as mentioned, he is, this is going to be a lot of fun this episode. So he is another email guy. So we're going to be talking email. However, he's been doing email for a lot longer than me. He's been doing email since 2001. So I'm very curious to bring him on and just go through how we got into email, and then also the kind of evolution of email over that time, if any. Like how's it different from now versus back in 2001? So please. I'm very excited to bring on today's guest, Tom Ruwitch. Tom, welcome to the Six Figure Coaches Show. How you going, mate?
Hey, Luke. Thanks.
So as mentioned, to email guys, this is going to be a lot of fun. So 2001 is when you started with email. Now, back then, there wasn't any kind of like complex funnels. I think Brunson really popularized funnels, probably about 2014, 2015 or so. So, right. Building your list and emailing your list was kind of like the main way to market your business back then. Now, let me ask, tell me a little bit first about like your story and how you got into email. Like, what was it that drew you to specifically using email to grow your business?
Sure. So I guess I'll back up to the 90s when I worked in the newspaper industry. I was a newspaper reporter. And then in the mid-90s, I got into the internet side of the newspaper industry. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, in the middle of the USA, and went to work for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch and their internet division, helping create their online newspaper in the mid-90s and various online products. And then I left the company and co-founded an internet startup in 1999. We built that company from the two co-founders to 85 people in about 18 months. Rode that wave. The money was flying into the .com market. The money flew out of the .bomb market when things began to turn bad.
I think that's about to happen soon again, very soon.
Well, yeah, I hope not. It was a exciting time, then a painful time. In any case, we were on target. We were moving where we wanted to, but we still had to raise some money. All the money dried up. Sad story. I won't bore you with the details. We sold that company, and then I was looking for the next thing to do. And the newspaper industry and the media model was really based on this idea of display advertising and classified advertising. We're going to bring so many people to the product, hope that enough eyeballs see the display ad or the classified ad, and charge a certain amount of money to allow advertisers to have access to this generally anonymous audience. And there are a lot of flaws with that media or with that model. And as the 2000s rolled in and I was looking for the next thing to do, I knew email. I was using email at that time. AOL was still a thing back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And but there was very, very little email marketing going on. A little bit, enough for me to begin to ponder what are the possibilities here. And what I really was interested in as the millennium was getting going is how the internet was going to change how buyers and sellers connect, and how buyers and sellers could have direct conversations as opposed to this media model that's so passive. I plop my ad out there and hope enough eyeballs see it and act. And so as I began to explore what the technologies were doing out there, I got fired up about the idea of email. I founded in 2001 an email service provider company called MarketVault. We launched that company around the same time as some of the companies that you still know about. Constant Contact, MailChimp, I think we're getting going around that time, but we were in it very, very, very early, and it was an interesting ride to be in the game at a time where very few people had heard of email marketing, much
Mm-hmm.
less tried it. So we
Okay.
we were right there at the beginning.
So that's like an email autoresponder software as a service. Is that what it was?
Yeah. I mean, it had the basic things that you would expect in any email marketing service today, or I shouldn't say any because they have evolved, as you noted, but the ability to upload a list, to segment it, to tag contacts, to
Okay, cool.
create HTML, um, basically multi format emails, HTML and text, and then to deliver and to track opens, clicks, and so forth. Now, we were pioneering in some of the automations that began to hint at what would happen with funnels. So we were one of the very first that had what we at the time called auto tagging. If a recipient receives an email and clicks on a certain link, you
Oh,
can
yeah.
tag them. And
Yep.
if they are so tagged, you can automatically send them a follow-up email. Now,
Yeah,
we
cool.
didn't have the sort of drag and drop funnel building stuff that is now common had in most marketing automation, but we were thinking already about that notion of how the exchange of information by email is really providing you intelligence about what are your clients' interests or your prospects'
Yeah.
interests.
Okay,
What
cool.
are they telling you when they interact with your content, and what can you do with that information to serve them better?
Hmm.
Because segmenting is not about invading people's privacy, at least not from my perspective as a marketer who acts ethically and wishes to serve. Segmenting and targeting and following up is about putting the right information in front of the right people at the right time so that they're getting stuff that's relevant to them as opposed to stuff that's boring and that they don't want to receive. So
Okay, cool.
we were in that game really, really early on. And, it's exciting to see in a lot of ways how similar many of the tools are today to what we were doing, now 20 plus years ago.
Actually, that brings me to my next question. So fast forward, 20 something years later. I mean, email's dead now, right? No one uses email anymore. So
Yeah, if the old thing, if I had a nickel, if I had a dime for every time somebody told me email was dead, back in
yeah,
2001, they start in with the, oh, email's dead. Here comes text, here comes Facebook, here comes
yeah,
this. I mean, there are social platforms that have come and gone since 2001
right,
that were going to be the death knell of email. Now, Luke, you were joking, I know, but yeah, there are a lot of people who every year tell us that email marketing is dead. It's
right.
not. It still is an incredibly powerful medium. Social media and other media have their places and have
Yeah,
value.
you're right.
But when it comes to engaging directly with a list that I don't love to use this word, but you do. You own your list. You
Yeah,
control your list. It's
right.
yours. And when it comes to engaging with an audience that you control and that you own and moving them through the process from lead to engage prospect to buyer to active fan, referral
Hmm.
agent, delighted lifetime customer. Email, there's no better medium than email. That's been true for as long as I've been in the game.
Yeah, the way that I kind of think about email, and the reason why it hasn't been killed off yet is because it's
Hmm.
a really different type of medium, right? So you look at social, or even like a good one is like DMs, right? So
Hmm.
with email, I can send someone an email every day, like with a story and good content, and people will tune in and they'll consume it. But if I did that same strategy with a private message, like on Facebook or just like an SMS, right? People would get very kind of annoyed with that, right? Because
Yeah.
it's a different medium. So
Yep.
I think it's a great medium to deliver content, and it's is it a great medium to deliver kind of longer form content than what you might get in a like a text or a direct message. Direct message is great for like, conversations,
Right.
quick conversations, but for delivering content, I think email is the winner, even beating out, and also not just content, obviously, but then having an offer at the end of whatever you're saying in your emails to book an appointment. People expect that type of content in email versus other mediums, and that's why I think it's powerful, because then when they accept it, obviously they'll consume your message. So that's
Yeah.
how I think of email. It's actually a totally different type of medium than the other ones. So that's why it has its place and it won't be killed off.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that people at least understand and accept the fact that you're going to get this kind of content
Right.
that often is going to be longer form. But I also think that as you and I have this conversation about email working and writing long story powered emails, we both
Yep.
do the daily email thing. There are probably a lot of people out there listening or watching who are thinking, doesn't work for me. I've tried it.
Right.
And we on the receiving end of emails understand this also, that our inboxes, our spam folders are full of garbage, overflowing with
Right.
garbage. And so it's both a valuable thing to receive and to send if you do it right, as well as a real irritant. That's both a problem and an opportunity.
Yeah,
The
absolutely. Sorry,
Yeah.
keep going.
uh,
Keep going.
yeah, I was going to say the opportunity is that most of the people out there, most of your competitors, are continuing to send out the same old
Yeah.
blah blah blah, information only, boring content, and whether they send it daily or weekly or monthly, their audiences don't care. They don't find it relevant. They
Yeah.
tune out, they move on. And if you start sending more of it because some coach
Yeah.
has told you, oh, daily email is better than weekly
Yeah.
email is better
Yeah.
than monthly email,
Yeah.
then all you're going to do is annoy people more frequently,
Yeah.
unless you send emails like the kind that you and I send, which are
Yeah.
engaging, entertaining, relevant,
Right.
story powered emails. That's the difference. So it's not just email works, period, no matter what. Email
Right.
works when you do it right. And there's a
Right.
way to do it right. There's a way to do it wrong.
And we will get into that.
Yeah.
And that's funny, because I hear, you probably hear this all the time as well. It's like, well, I don't want to send every day because that will annoy my list. And my thought on that is, well, if you're sending emails that are like, even if it's once per week and it annoys them, why are you even sending that email once per week? Like, if your emails are
Exactly.
annoying
Yeah.
them, don't send them at all. Like, you shouldn't be sending them at all. Instead, a better
Yeah.
question to ask yourself is, how do I send emails that they actually enjoy reading? Because if I can
Right.
send emails they enjoy reading, well, I can send that one a day or two a day, 3 a day, even if they actually enjoy reading it. Like, when you get an email from a friend or a colleague, you don't go, oh my gosh, they've sent me 2 emails today. That's a bit too much. No,
Exactly.
it doesn't even enter your head, because you want to receive that email from your friend or whatever. It's entertaining to you. It's you building a connection with your friend or family member or whatever. So
Yep.
it's not about the frequency. It's about, how do you send emails that they actually enjoy reading? If you do that,
Amen, brother.
then the rest will
Amen.
take care of itself.
Yeah. It's one of the most frequently asked questions I get.
Mm.
How often should I send?
And
And my
number 2
answer
is,
just
where do I get all that content from? So
exactly.
when you sell them on like
Exactly.
daily email, and by the way, the daily email thing, it's also a mathematical equation. If I'm sending them an email a day, all of my emails have an offer in them, like a call to action at the end, just a soft
Right.
call to action. Just mathematics. If I'm sending 1 email a day versus, sorry, 1 email per week versus 7 per week, mathematically, I'm going to be building. I've got more offers in front of them, so I'm going to get more appointments, and I'm also going to build a relationship a lot faster. So that's the other reason why you want to sell daily. It's just, your
Yeah.
numbers will work out better.
And by the way, you brought up another frequently asked question when you mentioned that you have the soft sell in every single email.
Yeah,
Another frequently asked question I get is, well, what ratio of
yeah,
emails should be value versus selling?
yeah,
And
yeah,
it is one of the most pervasive and
yeah.
dangerous and terrible myths that so-called gurus are dishing out there. The
I know.
ratio of send 40%
I
pitch
know.
and sales
Yeah,
emails and 60% value emails, as if you're not providing value when you
Yeah,
offer
exactly
something
right.
for
That's
sale. And
yeah,
yeah,
Ben,
so
Ben
you and I
Settle.
do it.
Ben
Yeah,
Settle's
you and
another
I do
email
it the
guy.
same way. And you're
Yeah,
right. Ben Settle has influenced me on that question. It's
yeah,
if you are providing value, entertaining them, informing them,
yeah,
showing them how you can make their life better, then they're naturally going to be in a position where they're thinking, tell me more, show me more, what's the next step?
yeah.
Now, are they going to click on every offer that you put in the bottom of the email? Not necessarily. In fact, the answer is no. Not
Mm.
everyone clicks on every link at the bottom, but they're not going to be offended by it. And
Yeah,
so
exactly right.
I'm right with you, Luke, that put those every email is entertaining, informative, and has a call to action that's a
Absolutely.
soft pitch to whatever it is you've got
Yeah.
going.
And
Yep.
so what I learned from Ben Settle is he has a really great analogy where it's like, okay, let's say and this is particularly relevant for coaches if you're solving a very painful problem, right? So let's say you're solving, like I have a client right now that we're launching a campaign. She helps women who have cancer and she helps heal
Mm,
their cancer naturally, right? So let's say you've got someone that needs help right now because they've got cancer, right? They need help with that, but you're sending like 10 value emails with no pitch. It's kind of like this is Ben Settle's analogy. It's like going into a pharmacy and you're like, okay, I've got this rash, I need help right now. And the pharmacist says, well, this is only a value only day, so I've got a brochure here. It'll teach you about your rash, but we're not actually selling anything to help you with that rash right now. You're gonna have to come back next
exactly.
week once we've sent you all this content. Like that. That's literally what we coaches are doing when we don't offer the solution to their painful problem, right? So all us coaches, we should be solving a very painful problem. I talk about that a lot. And if you are, then you're actually doing your prospects a disservice by not having that call to action. That's all it really is. It's not like
Yep.
a hard pitch. It's just a soft call to action. Like, hey, if you need help getting more clients, if you need help, with your, healing your cancer, blah, 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 let's have a chat. That would be the next step. They don't have to
Yeah.
take it, but they've already got value from the email. They've got entertainment. If they're happy, they'll be happy with that. They don't have to take the call to action, as you said. But I think
Yeah.
they're doing a
I
disservice by not doing it.
I completely agree, and I think there's a mindset thing at play, Luke, because
Yeah,
I think that a lot of coaches and consultants, um, they believe that they are providing a valuable service, but for whatever reason, sales and pitching
Mm.
feels yucky to them.
Yeah, yeah,
And there's I know because I've seen it in working with my own clients that there's a certain element of imposter syndrome, because what you and I are talking about is look, what you are offering for sale is part of the gift. It's part of the
yeah.
solution. It's part of getting a prospect and then a client from point A to point B. And you
Right.
are a business person. You're not here to do this for free. You're sharing information for free to the people who have signed up for your list. And then you're saying, hey, the next step is buy this thing or download this thing or show up at this training and so forth. And if you don't believe that that next step is valuable and is a gift
Mm.
for your clients, whether they have to part with money or not to get it, then that's going to pervade everything you do in
Right,
business,
exactly right.
not just the emails that you're sending.
Yeah, yeah, and again, that cancer example is really good because she was asked, she was
Yeah.
selling it for like a program for like 5,000 for $7,000, and she's like, "Is
Mhm.
it worth that amount of money?" I'm like, "Is it worth that amount of money? What are you helping them do? You're literally saving their life. Like, what,
Right.
if if it was me and I had cancer, I would invest. What is money? If someone feels like they're going to die, like what's $50,000 to them? They're not going to be able to use it in 6 months or whenever they're
Yep.
told that they're going to pass away. So your program is worth whatever, 150, $200,000. What the real question is like, does the prospect believe in you and your methodology? And also
Right.
what you said, Tom, do you believe in your methodology? Because if
Mhm.
you don't believe in your methodology, that's going to pervade through everything. I think that's a big thing that I've seen again through the coaches is that they're lacking a bit of confidence in their own methodology, maybe because they haven't got the consistent. And this just comes with time and getting results with clients. You can't. It's not like a meditation or an affirmation that you do each morning and say, like, I believe in my system. It comes from doing that over and over again and getting results for clients. And that's what happened for me anyway. I've just done it so many times with coaches, literally over 1,000 coaches with their advertising campaigns, that it's just like, I know my methodology, I believe in it, and that comes through. And as I said, when you get that, as you start to build that belief, then I think the sales, what we're talking about here, the sales side of things, and like selling your system in your emails or social media or wherever it is, it becomes so much easier for you because you believe now, because you've seen the results, you believe in those results. So I think there's a bit of just going through the process, but also listening to conversations like this, saying like, hey, it's okay to offer someone a solution to their problem every day, you know?
Exactly. And I think the challenge, I've seen coaches who, when they're working with clients, they are comfortable, they are confident,
Right.
and in many ways they're bringing to the table the same qualities that I teach they should bring to their storytelling: empathy,
Yep.
putting yourself in your prospect's shoes and understanding what they're feeling, envisioning, showing them the other side of the mountain, what the journey is going to be. If you empathize and envision in your marketing, you're going to be presenting a story that people are going to buy into. Well, that's exactly what you're doing as a coach. And in their coaching work, they actually do feel confident. But what happens is when they start to get into the realm of marketing and promoting, they're not doing that anymore. They're falling out of their strengths, and they're falling into old the mindset that pitching is ugly, just dishing out boring information, of not sharing themselves and their personality. And then they get resistance. And that resistance begins to feed their confidence as coaches, and it becomes this kind of vicious circle. The beauty of what you and I do with storytelling and daily emails and providing relevant content is that the very qualities that make those emails and the marketing effective are the same qualities that make them good coaches. And if they understood that and embrace that, it would all work full circle and to their benefit.
Absolutely. Actually, that leads on to a good next part of the conversation, which is, let's talk about the actual kind of mechanics of writing great emails. So you touched on a few things there with empathy and envisioning. And one of the things that I've noticed with coaches is that because we love our own system, right, our own methodology, that we often we talk more about the system than we do the vision, right? So we talk more about the features of our system and all the cool frameworks and templates and trainings. Like, oh, you get 500 hours of training. It's like, people don't want to hear that. So how do you maybe just give a hot top level overview of like maybe how you approach your emails?
Sure.
Then you can go into maybe a little bit deeper after that.
Well, I'll do it by telling you a story about a client whom I helped write better emails. So you were right there. You were talking about the idea that they want to share either descriptions of their service, and the mechanics and the features of it, or if it's just sort of their regular emails. What coaches and consultants and others suffer from is knowing too much and wanting to dish out too much information. And the other thing that they suffer from is that they think they have to present themselves with this super professional, serious face and a professional demeanor that's somehow different than what we think of as personality driven and story driven emails. And the result are emails that are very lectury, very info only, very blah, blah, blah. And so the story I wanted to share is an executive coach. She helps business owners get off the hamster wheel. And one of the pieces of information, lessons, valuable ideas that she shares is how to delegate. Okay. That is an important thing to know. The problem is that there are 8 million coaches out there who can write a blog post on here's why delegation is important and here are 5 tips to do it better. And you could log into ChatGPT right now and ask ChatGPT to write me a blog post that tells you why delegation is important and how to do it better. And 5 seconds later, you'd have a blog post that's as good as the blog post she first wrote. Delegation is a very important skill for business people. Blah, 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 blah. Here are the 5 tips. Nobody reads that. Nobody cares. So what we did when we sat down with her is we said, let's really get to the heart of the story. And the heart of the story begins, as I said earlier, with empathy and envisioning. Let's empathize with the business owner. What are they feeling that they need to solve through empathy? What are they feeling? If they work with you, what is it? What's the other side of the mountain? Let's envision that. And then what we're really talking about is delegation enabling the journey from where they are now to where they want to be. And she said, "Oh, you know what? I have a client." Out of this came, from her memory bank, a story. And the story was a business owner who had run this business for 20 years and had never taken a vacation longer than a long weekend. Had never gone away longer than Friday through Monday because he feared that if he did, all hell would break loose. The place would fall apart. He'd get phone calls while he was away. All true because he had never learned to delegate. So instead of a blog post about delegation, blah, 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 here's why it's important, she wrote an email with the subject line, how a stressed out owner let go and got away. The image with that email was a guy on a hammock, sunset, overlooking a beach, which is literally what this guy ended up doing when he went away for 2 weeks. And then the story was, I know a business owner who never went on vacation for more than 2 weeks. Here's what he feared. Here's what he worried about, blah, blah, blah. But finally, he was able to get away. Here's what he experienced when he went away. Here's what he experienced when he came back. What changed? He learned to delegate. Okay, let's break that down. First of all, stories don't have to be long mini screenplay narratives with 10 steps and following all the elements of the hero's journey. They don't have to be so darn hard. Before, after, what enabled the journey. We call it the 3E framework in storytelling. Empathize, envision, enable. How a stressed out owner, before stressed out, let go and got away. Anyone who reads that, who is like, yeah, I'm stressed out. I'd like to get away. I'd like to let go. Those are her prospects. And they are going to read it because they can relate. And they are going to get to the part that says delegation versus dumping because now those tips are relevant. And they're going to get to the call to action at the bottom that says, hey, if you want to learn how to do this, call me, set up a discovery call. We'll go from there. So that I love to share that story because it's a classic example of a coach making that transformation from boring information only, blah, blah, blah content to story powered, prospect and client focused, transformational content that emphasizes not the widget or the features of what you do, but the transformations that you deliver. And go ahead. Sorry. That was a long answer.
I wanted to point out a couple of things there. So number one, what you've done here, you've put the feature, the methodology, the delegating in this example, in context of the prospect's problem, right? So you've made it real to them. The other thing you've done is you've started the email with a story, which is what I teach as well. And I love stories because this is naturally how we communicate as humans, right? Ever since you learn to talk as a 15-month-old, you communicate generally with stories, with family, colleagues, friends, etc. So we naturally communicate this way. So I'm the same as you. Like when I just say, look, just tell the story as if you would tell it to a friend or family. To start there. Like, don't
Yep.
think there's some magic storytelling formula. Like, just tell the story, and then there's a few things you can do to copywriting wise to make it stronger, but just get it out in the first instance.
Yep.
But I like stories as well because they are naturally, and this is perfect for copywriting, they're naturally emotional, right? So, as you know, with content, that's very the problem with teaching people content is that it uses a different part of their brain, the learning part, which is not very emotional, right? And that's not
Right.
the part that buys. As we've all heard
Yep.
before, people buy on emotion, then they justify with logic. So it's like 80 or 90% emotion, 10 to 20% logic. And so stories are naturally emotional. They make it real. They're easy to understand because that's how
Yep.
we biologically we communicate, and they're emotional. So they make it. You get a much better response in terms of appointments or sales or whatever because they have that natural emotional, within when you're telling a story, if that makes sense. So. Anyway, I just thought I'd point that out because I think it's really important. You don't just tell a story just because, and also they're naturally entertaining. There's just so many benefits to telling stories, and I just thought I would point that out to the listeners and watchers.
Yeah, and I agree with everything you said, that people are naturally drawn to stories. I mean, there are chemical reactions that are happening in the brain when we hear stories,
Yep.
and we know, like, and trust storytellers.
Mhm.
That's not just a woo woo feeling thing. That's again, brain chemistry, and but on the most basic level, when we tell a story that is relevant to the prospect, they are thinking consciously or subconsciously, wow, this guy gets me. This storyteller
Yeah, exactly right.
understands what I'm feeling. And so if you get the journey part right, this person is talking about something I care about, is evoking a journey I want to take, then what they're going to do is they're going to lean in and say, how do we get there? How, what is it that this person is doing?
Right.
They want you to pitch them at that point. They're inviting you to tell
Yeah.
them about, hey, I'll teach you how to delegate, or I'll teach you how to be an email storyteller, or I'll teach you how to do whatever it is I do. So now back to that conversation we were having about, being afraid to pitch. Your pitch is welcome, and I know you've mentioned Ben Settle, that we've learned from many of the same people. Dan Kennedy talks about this notion of being the welcome guest instead of the unwelcome
Yeah.
pest, unwanted pest. And that's what we all want.
Mm.
That's, if we don't want to feel like, oh, we're pitching and the person across the table or at the email is just in complete resistance mode.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
want to be welcomed in as the welcome guest. Tell me more, Tom. Tell me more. Tell me about your system. I want to check out your course or your video or your webinar or seminar. And you do that when you make yourself relevant and when you tell stories.
Yeah. Exactly right. All right. So let me ask, because this is a big question. We haven't really addressed it yet, which is always like once we us email guys, we sell people on the daily email and we show them the framework. The next logical question is, well, okay, but where do I get all my ideas from? Like,
Yeah.
I like one email per day. I can't come up with that much content. Like, how do I even write an email per day? So do you want to give an insight into how you help your clients to generate content for their emails?
Yeah, it's funny because we were doing some work today in my coaching program on that very thing. And the exercise that I went through is to tell those in the group, think about the frequently asked questions that you get from your clients, or think about those pieces of information that you wish to share. So let's say it's an executive coach. Well, what are some of the pieces of information or valuable tips that might
Yeah.
be topics for an email? How to delegate properly, how to time block, how to communicate with your prospects and clients, and so forth. So just as you would if you had no knowledge of the whole storytelling or daily email thing, you kind of know what your you have to know what it is that you're going to put out there, what information, what lessons, what
Yep.
tips you want to share. So you're going to make that list, and that list is finite. There's not an endless set of topics. And that actually is what is so challenging for people who don't write emails the way that Luke and I do, who aren't finding story hooks for them. Because
Yeah.
how many times can you write an email about delegation if the email is just another lecture about delegation? Delegation is very important and blah, 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 blah. You write it once and can't rehash that for another 12 months, and nor do you want to, because nobody read it the first time and you feel like nobody's tuning in. But what happens when you have the list, you can get at the story from two directions. Number one is you can come at the ideas you want to share. Okay, let's say it's delegation. And then you can just say to yourself, all right, where is there a story hook? What's a slice of life story that in my own experience that I could tell that the moral of the story is the delegation tip I want to share? Or as it worked with my client, let's try to dig in and try to find a client story that can tell this delegation story in a more effective way. So that's working from the topic or the lesson to the story. And it's doable as you practice it. And I do that sometimes. More often than not, though, what happens with me is life just happens. And because I have a clear idea of the ideas that I wish to share, I have a clear idea of my prospects and clients' stories. What makes them tick? What are they concerned about? What are they worried about? What are the journeys that I want to evoke in the emails? What happens is those things are locked in my brain. And then when I'm living my life, watching a movie on TV, watching a sporting event,
I'm smiling because this is same with me. Yeah,
it'll just
ideas are everywhere. Yeah, and that's what I tell clients is like it's never about not having enough content. It's always about which email idea. If I showed you my list, I could share my screen. I literally have like
I have it too. Yeah, just
so like anytime I get an idea, where is it here? Oh, here we go. Yeah, it's like scrolling down. There is I don't know, maybe 500 ideas that I haven't yet got to. And that's what happens. Like I teach exactly what you've just taught there, Tom, in terms of there's kind of two ways to come up with ideas. You start with the learning point, and then you think of a story that relates, or you just go, as I said, life happens. Like I could go to, here we go. Like I can go to, actually my computer is going a bit slow. So I'm actually literally waiting for a new computer to be delivered like any minute now. It's supposed to arrive at the door. So if we hear a knock at the door, that's just that. Anyway, I just navigated to news.com.au. Okay.
Yep.
There is Waleed. He's a news anchor over here. Rip's co-host over conspiracy rant. So there's an article there about a certain conspiracy theory. Oh, here's another one. How South Park did an episode on the royals. What's his name? Prince Harry and Meghan. Right. So there's lots of articles in here about that episode and how they're really depressed about that episode. So anyway, I could tell a story about that right now. What's the lesson of that story? Like for me, it would be the marketing lesson. Well, I don't know that right now. I'd have to kind of look at that. But the point is, when you get practice at this, you can just tell any story. And as you know, because you know your product, you know your market, you'll learn how to link those two. You'll go, okay, this story. The lesson on this story about Meghan Markle and Prince Harry is X, Y, Z, right? This weight loss lesson or this marketing lesson. Like I could get like from that one story, I could get like a weight loss lesson, a dating lesson, a cancer
Exactly.
healing lesson, right? So
Yeah.
that's what I teach as well. It's like there's just ideas literally everywhere. You don't even have to come up with them. Like, yes, it's cool if you've got your own personal story or a client story. That's always the low-hanging fruit. But then above that, or beyond that, is literally you've got access to the internet, which is like what, hundreds of millions of stories at your fingertips. So
Yep. Exactly. 100%. So books, movies, sporting events,
yeah,
forums. So I spent a lot of time on Reddit,
yeah,
and I draw questions from Reddit and marketing forums and so forth, on and on and on and on. And in my experience, oftentimes I'll take something that happened to me or that I found elsewhere that's amusing or interesting, entertaining,
mm,
and I'll just start to write it down, and I'm still not sure what the
exactly
business
right. Yeah,
lesson, what
just write it
what
down.
the
Yeah,
moral of the story is, and sometimes I'll write for a few minutes and not get there and then just put it away because it didn't hook. So the story ideas, but more often than not, I'll start to write and then I'll be like, ah, yeah, you know what, this is a mindset
yeah,
lesson, or this is a lesson about list building, or whatever the case may be. And so it's often you start with an anecdote that has not a whole lot of meaning, but it's
yes,
entertaining, it's funny, and so forth, and you find the meaning if you know your business and if you know your clients. We're operating the same way. And there was something you said in there, and I've been hinting at this as well. Too many of the so-called storytelling experts, the gurus out there, are trying to make this way, 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 way
mm,
too complicated. They
yeah.
want they want to liken storytelling to, writing a screenplay and
And have
and
multiple
comparing.
emails and go on this gigantic journey, and yeah, no, yeah,
Yeah, and comparing it to the elements of Star Wars and so forth, and you have to memorize the elements of Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, or Freytag's pyramid, or Aristotle's dramatic arc, or whatever the heck, and no, if somebody tells you that business storytelling, here's the 10-step framework for business storytelling, they've given you a framework that has 7 steps too many.
yeah,
uh,
yeah,
I told you before that I frame it up as the 3 E's: empathize, envision, enable. If you understand where your clients and prospects fit with your products in that framework, where they are, where they want to go, how your products enable the journey,
mm,
then you can plug anecdotes and entertaining stories from your own life or from somebody else's life in that hit those dots, and the clients will love and lap up
yeah,
every single day.
absolutely. Yeah, it's funny. I got a client who does done for you emails. Same, he's like a daily email guy, and even he came because he's on my list. He's like, dude, where do you get all your ideas from? I'm like, I don't know. It's easy. Like, it's so, once you know your market and your offer, like, it's so easy to, oh, what I was going to mention is coming back to what you're saying about sometimes you have a story, right? Entertaining story. It could be a meet, like a news breaking news or whatever. And I was like, hey, this is an interesting story. What's the lesson? I don't know. You can put it to the side, and a very powerful technique that I've done is I just let my subconscious just work on it, right? So actually, that
Yep.
client, we're just launching his campaign, and people are opting into his funnel, but they're not booking appointments for some reason. It's strange. So, and everything looks great, and immediately I don't know what the problem is. So he's going to start calling the leads to find out, are these the right people opting in? Anyway, what I did when I didn't immediately know what the solution was, I just said, okay, now I've had a look at the funnel. I'm just going to put it to the side, and I'm going to come back. I'm just going to let it. I'll come back to it tomorrow. And then, as I'm kind of going about my day, my mind in the background is working on a solution. And I found it, and I came back the next day with, okay, here's what I'm going to do. Here's my plan. And I find that works really well for emails as well. Like, if you come up with an entertaining story from somewhere, wherever it is, you don't know what the lesson is or the moral, just, you can write it out or just have the lesson there, and then literally your mind will work for you in the background, coming up with that idea. It will come to you eventually, whether it's the same day or the next day. I usually find it's either the same day or the next day. But using your the power of your subconscious mind, I think, works really well for email ideas. And then when you get, as you said, the more you do it, the easier it becomes to go through this process.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, Luke. And so you talk about the power of the subconscious mind, and some people hear that and think that this is all woo 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 stuff, but also inherent in what you said is a very clear set of systems and habits. So you didn't share the exact details, but part of this is that you have habits about consuming stuff. So you're going to
Right.
news sites. I'm going to Reddit. I'm I'm watching and listening, and there are habits of noticing that I've developed. And so you notice things, you look out for things, and then you record them. You have tools.
Mhm.
I have different I have a way I record stuff on my watch if an idea
Yep.
hits me.
Yep. Yep.
I have software, Notion, that I write stuff down in. And so stuff will fly in and out of your mind if you're not systematic about recording them and giving yourself the opportunity to
Yeah.
let it simmer. It won't be there if you didn't record it in the
It
first
won't.
place.
I've like, oh, that's such a good idea. I've done this so many times. I'll definitely remember that idea because it's so good. Like
Yeah,
10 minutes later, what was that idea again? Oh my, and it's like, it's so frustrating. Like, so yeah, write it down.
exactly.
But what
Yeah,
I tell my clients is you don't have to go look at content that you're not already looking at, because all of us were already, what most coaches listening are watching Netflix, or they're on YouTube, or they're consuming certain types of media. That's where you get your content from, just with your regular daily habits. So don't think that you
right.
have to have like this, I need to read this type of website and this type. Just use the content that you're already consuming as the basis for your email ideas. I think is a good place to start. You wouldn't
Yeah, and I
that
I,
as
I
well.
mentioned earlier, watching a movie, and I don't want that to just sit out there as a hypothetical. So
Mhm.
I'll give you an example of this. So marketing lesson. The marketing lesson is that testimonials and social proof are very valuable in promoting your products and services.
Yep.
That's marketing 101. We all know
Yep.
that. And if I simply put a blog post out there that's, blah, blah, it was very important to have testimonials and social proof, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? Nobody would pay attention to me. Nobody would, people would start to opt out of my emails.
Yeah.
Nobody cares. But I was watching, this is now a couple of years ago. I'm watching on rerun that movie When Harry Met Sally. And there's a scene in When Harry Met Sally where Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan go into a deli and they're having this conversation, and Meg Ryan makes the comment that most women fake it.
Fake it. Yep.
Right. And Billy's like, "Nah, my girlfriends never did that." She's like, "How do you know?" And he's like, "I would know, I know." And if you remember this scene in the movie, one of the most famous scenes in rom-com history,
Yeah.
she picks up a turkey sandwich, takes a bite, and then fakes it.
Yeah.
And the gag, the end, the whole joke, he's embarrassed. It's a saucy scene. The punchline of the joke, or the whole scene, is these four old women are sitting at the next table over, and the old woman looks over as the waiter comes to the table, points at Meg Ryan and says, "I'll have what she's having."
Yeah.
And it's a great joke. And I saw that movie, and it just clicked that, oh, that'll be a funny story to tell as an email, to just make the simple point about the power of social proof, the
Yep.
power of people. If you can prove that people had an extraordinary outcome,
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
um,
Yep.
then the people at the next table will have the
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
mindset,
That's a
"Oh,
good
I'll
lesson.
have what she's having."
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and that's such an effective way. You're just making your readers smile
Yeah.
and laugh by sharing an entertaining story, but you're then bringing it home with not a particularly the most profound business lesson, but one to reinforce. It's something I
Yeah.
teach,
Yeah.
and that that I dare say most people don't do enough of.
Yeah.
It's social proof and testimony, and that's just a great example. I'm watching a movie, and boom! Oh, I'm gonna I'm gonna tell the story of that scene and turn that into an email. And I had fun writing it, got
Yeah.
great response, and it's that kind of stuff that people tune into.
Yeah. What you've just mentioned there is something that it's hard to convey, but it's probably one of the more, other than the emotional side of storytelling, the biggest benefits of telling story is the ability the, to get your point across very simply and very powerfully, right? So
Mhm.
if you write a post that's just like, you need to add social proof because here are all the benefits and blah blah blah, like that's one way of kind of trying to convince someone. But putting it
Mhm.
within a story, you're like almost like demonstrating your point in action, and people get it much more easily than if you were just to have a list of benefits or to try and persuade someone that way, if that makes sense. So I think the very
Yeah.
underrated and not often talked about power of story is the ability to get your point across
Yeah.
clearly, so the other person gets it. And that's where a lot of good copywriting is. It's communication, right? And help
Yep.
and trying to get the prospect to see your product or service in the way that you see it and understand how powerful it is. And I think that's a very underrated and often not talked about part about storytelling, as I mentioned, that is very,
Yep.
very powerful. And anyway, that's I thought I'd point that out because it's something that it's hard to convey to. Actually, I could tell a story about it to convey that point, but yeah, I don't really talk about it that often. It's kind of like the benefit what I love about writing emails is the actual process of writing an email is really good because it helps you get very clear, like gets you very clear on like how you get results, the benefits of your program. Just doing it so often, that clarity makes you're able to persuade a lot better as well. Because again, that's one I
Right.
think the biggest benefits of writing is the clarity that it gives you. That's a very hard kind of benefit to convey unless someone's actually gone through the process. So I don't really talk about it that much. I have mentioned on my podcast every now and then, but until someone kind of writes their emails, or a good example is writing your own book. Like if you write a book, that helps you get a lot
Mhm.
of clarity on your process, and you don't really understand the benefit of that until you've actually done it, like the true benefit.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like what we've just discussed there. It's a very, very powerful aspect of storytelling that I don't think is talked about enough, but
Yeah.
it's super powerful for persuading people.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I was struck by you use the word fun. You were talking about the fun that you have in writing the email. I was, I think, clearly demonstrating how much I enjoyed
Yeah.
writing that email when I told that story, and and that's another piece of this that we haven't really discussed. That this is not only about having greater effect, having a
Mm.
better marketing outcome of higher open rates, higher click-through rates, higher conversion rates, all of those things, which ultimately is what we're trying to do as business people and coaches.
Yeah.
But it's also about the process not being such a friggin' drag, not
Yeah.
suffering
Yeah.
from writer's block, not sitting down in front of a computer and thinking, I promised my list I'd write an email today. Now what?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it it can be it can be fun, and one of the things I promise when I talk about my business, one of the things I say is that we help coaches transform their marketing or their content from ignored to adored, and
Mm.
transform the marketing process from frustrating to fun.
Yeah.
And when I say it, when I'm saying it in person or across a Zoom room from somebody, I could see them sort of like, "Oh, yeah, sure, fun, right." And but, you know, um, I know you believe me because I know you experience it. When you
Yeah.
start
Yeah.
to do this, it is it is fun. You read a funny news story or an interesting news story, you
Yeah.
see a
Exactly.
funny scene in a movie,
Yeah. It is fun. Yeah.
something happens to you that's entertaining or interesting, and then you get to turn it in a way that you're providing business value to people. All of
Mm.
a sudden, this is fun. It
Yeah.
truly
Absolutely.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's actually a good place to end.
Yeah.
So, Tom, I've got one question. I asked this of all the guests. You're standing at the top of a mountain. There's thousands of coaches below you. You can only shout to them one message for them to become more successful. What is that one message?
Oh, wow. Be more curious and attentive. So
Okay.
everything that we've talked about
Yeah.
is about paying attention. So pay attention to your prospects and your clients and what they're feeling. Stop turning it into me, what I know, what I know, what I know. Pay attention, be curious, listen, look for the interesting and entertaining things around you. You know what you know.
Mm,
If you add to that the curiosity, the listening, the paying attention, the empathy, you'll be able to add the pieces that we've been talking about and all of a sudden create the powerful story powered content that's going
absolutely.
to get people to tune in and turn on.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, Tom. So, where can the coaches listening in go to learn more about you and what it is that you do?
Yeah, yeah. So the best place to go is to my website, storypowermarketing.com. Story Power Marketing, all one word. And if you go to storypowermarketing.com/Luke, you'll get there's a free report. It's called Five Secrets. It's 5 keys to create captivating stories. And what I do is I break down 5 of the greatest story powered ads in
Oh, cool.
history, including the Wall Street Journal, Two
Yeah.
Young Men letter, and a few other things. And I break those down to show you that even 100 years ago, there were some great marketing pieces that were beginning to lean into these storytelling techniques, and you can
Yeah.
draw a lot of powerful lessons. Also, when you're on the site, I'll invite you to join me on my email list. I practice what I preach. I entertain you. I'll teach you. I'll provide value. And so join my list. Get that free Hall of Fame ads report at storypowermarketing.com/Luke, and look for me on LinkedIn, and be happy to connect with you there.
Thanks, Tom. Pleasure having you on. And for everyone listening, go check out Tom's link, and we'll see you in the next episode. See you then. Cheers.